All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. We can see that we're working on a different car now. This is the R33 Skyline that you guys have seen in the background when I was working on the S13 and S14 in those videos. This is the car that I went to a drift event last weekend. I got really excited. I rode in some other 240s, like the one I sold. I think they were all S13s. I think they're an S14 like that one over there. But this is my R33 Skyline. I've had it for a few years, and I did a little bit of upgrades to it. I did the intake manifold on it, did an exhaust manifold on to it, did a different turbo, and then we did a 3-inch downpipe. Going to the rear, we have the Haltech Platinum Pro ECU inside of it for the ECU management, and I just never get it to run right. We're using different injectors that we don't have the full injector data on it, so, and then coil packs that I just got off. So all cheap stuff that you guys have seen me use on my other cars, those over there run. But this car, for some reason, is just, I don't know what's going on with it. So what we're gonna do is, after I rebuilt it with the forged internals, forged pistons, forged rods inside of it, we were running around, we were just breaking the motor in, but then it seems like it's consuming oil. And it looks like there's an oil drip right in the bottom of the motor, and it keeps on just dripping oil. I've changed out the seal 5 times, 2 different oil pumps, and it's just still leaking. So what we're gonna do is, we have a drift event in about 2 weeks. I know it's kind of like a hasty timeline, but we're gonna get the motor out, we're gonna put on the engine stand, we're gonna break the motor down, check the rings, make sure there's no scarring on the cylinders, make sure the head's good, just make sure everything's good on the motor before we take it out drifting. I was watching some YouTube videos last night of Samit, which some of you might know. He's in the drifting scene, really good drifter. He's also a YouTube channel as well, go check him out. He went over videos of like years ago when he had his stock R33. Actually, I think he called it a 33.5 or something like that, or 34.5 or something like that, because it had R33, but it had the, what do you call it, the R34 front end is what it was, right? So he was going over like what he had in his car and the engine, and the fuel pump, and all that setup, and it was like, wow, it's a stock motor, stock intake, stock turbo, I believe, at the time. And I think the only thing he did was the front mount intercooler, which we have ours removed right now. It's sitting over there with the turbo and intake manifold. Let me show you that real quick. So this is the aftermarket turbo I was using right here, pretty big turbo right there, and then the exhaust manifold. Now, the exhaust manifold is pretty nice, but the way this comes up, it seems like it takes forever for the turbo to spool. And it might just because I'm running a stock motor still with stock cams with a little bit bigger pistons, because I need to bore out the cylinders from the scarring in the cylinder walls from the last time. But anyway, that's the exhaust manifold, that's the turbo we're running. There's a forward facing, or the front mounted intercooler piping, or intercooler. So that's what we're running on the car right now. We have a dual row radiator sitting right there, and as you can tell, I've already taken the exhaust manifold off, trouble's already off. Sorry if I'm repeating myself again. We're getting ready to take the radiator out right now, but I took off that side first while I was waiting for the radiator drain. I'm taking out the 4 bolts right here on the clutch fan. Yes, I run a clutch fan because I tried it once, or I tried it a few times with just electric fans, but I like the clutch fan, how much cooler it keeps the motor, and especially in the hot months where I live. So we are gonna keep on using the clutch fan for now, and we're almost done. We have 1 more bolt to go there. We're gonna pull the radiator out. I think the radiator hose is all right. So this is getting ready to come out now. And then after done with that, we're gonna pull the intake manifold off, the fuel rail off. We're gonna pull the motor out. Like I said, I'm gonna line up the crank so that way I know where top dead center it is. So that way when we put it back in the car, especially when it's a manual, input shaft has to go in the motor. So if you know where it was when you pull it and you put the car in gear, then that way it makes it easier when you put the motor back in, that the splines line up and you don't have to shake the motor back and forth, etc. So we're gonna do that in a minute. I'm not gonna record the whole thing because you're gonna hear me talking, you're gonna see me just running around. And in my other videos, I noticed I have to do like speed laps or time lapse, whatever you call it, and make it go faster. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do short little videos of here and there on the status. So this is what it's looking at right now. Here's the car, R33 Skyline, GTST, RB25 DET, single turbo. We're gonna pull it apart, we're gonna take it out. I'll pull it up when I get on the engine stand, we'll pull the motor apart together. Look at the cylinders, look at the pistons, check the rods, check the bearings, check everything in the motor, make sure it's good, and then we're gonna go drifting in about 2 weeks. So we have an aggressive timeline, we got a lot to get done, so let's get at it. All right, welcome back. Continuing on with the RB25 DET pull from the Skyline, the one we're gonna turn into a drift car. As we already talked about, the exhaust manifold and turbo are off, the radiator is gone, clutch fan is gone. We turned the motor to top dead center, so all the points align. Crank's top dead center, and the cams, both cams are the notches right there. Well, maybe the angle I'm showing that, it doesn't look like it is, but top dead center, and top dead center on this side too. Got all electrical unplugged underneath the car. Here, I've got my light, it's getting late. So you can see the intake manifold's gone. We've just unhooked the coolant lines back there off the motor, draining down into, you call it the drain pan below, up below the motor. Got one starter bolt out, and I think that's where I'm gonna call it for the night. Getting tired and still got a ways to go. Not too much more to go. I gotta take the bell housing bolts out, and I'll take this motor mount bolt out. So we have bell housing bolts to do, one motor mount bolt to do. I gotta remove the power steering, I gotta remove the AC compressor. I might just leave the AC off, especially because we're gonna be drifting. Less pull on the motor. But that's where I'm gonna leave it tonight. I'm just gonna get this video, because I said I would record in stages, so there we go. So let's call it a night. Good night, God bless, bye. All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you can tell, after work today, I got to work on the car pretty quick, the R33 drift car that we're now working on. You can see the engine is now pulled, power steer sitting over there, but the engine's out. Where'd it go? I'll show you. Sitting right there. Got some parts right there, got some parts over there, got the clutch and everything. Clutch looks good, so we're happy about that. Brand new clutch. We got the head off, got the camshafts off, got the head gasket, because you can tell the head gasket needs to be replaced. Got pretty mucky. So maybe there's like I don't know, maybe I didn't torque down the head bolts enough, but we see right there, looking good. And I was gonna do like a slow-mo from back here and say, hey guys, you know, like when I was pulling the head off, and then put like one of those slow scene, like slow motion cinematic scenes on it, and be like, you know, see if there's any damage to the cylinders. And as you can tell from my voice and how excited I am, there's no damage to the cylinders. So I am very happy about that, because I consider going to get another motor just in case, which they're not that cheap. RB25s are around $3,000 to $4,000 right now. Depends on who you get it from. Sometimes they'll get with the transmission, sometimes they won't. And you never know, like the people you get it from, you don't know if they did a compression check on it. They could say, yes, I did, or no, they didn't. But anyway, the motor's apart. The head's off. We still got to pull the oil pan off. We got to drain the oil, pull the oil pan off, check all the bearings, make sure there's no damage to the crank. I still can't figure out why there's an oil leak right there. You can see it. See that oil right there? Sorry, you got all my other stuff in the way, but there's this oil right here. And it's been a continuous problem for me, and I don't know why. There's that dimple right there, but this is a brand new oil pump. Actually, this is the second brand new oil pump I put on this motor, and I can't figure out why oil keeps on seeping through the seal. Now, when I had the engine shop put the new collar on it, on these RB25s, you have like that really small collar for the oil pumps. On this one, I had them machine it down, like CNC it down and put a new one on it. And I'm wondering if something happened and they didn't tell me, but I'm not speculating. I'm just trying to figure out like why it would start leaking when I've changed that seal like 5 times. I tried 2 different oil pumps, like brand new oil pumps. I've tried torquing this thing down, you know, with just RTV and then putting the gasket around it. I don't know why it keeps leaking, and we really need to figure that out, because I don't want to be leaking oil in the track, and I don't want to be leaking oil, period, you know, to get engine damage. So we need to figure that out. It could be crank case pressure. There we go. Slow down, talk clear. But I think it's because when I had the old turbo on it, and you guys saw the new one we put on there, I don't have the turbo currently right now pulling the vacuum off top of the heads. You know, it's just kind of venting to atmosphere. But maybe that's not enough. Maybe I need to do a catch can in the back right corner like Samet does in his videos. I've seen other people do in their Skyline. So there's some research I need to do. I also want to make sure that these pistons, the way I installed them, I try to match them up to what the original ones look like. How the bottom of the piston is like there's a little like cut in on one of the sides of them. I try to match it where I think that the stock one does, and I don't know if I reversed it. But once we get the oil pan off, get the oil drain, the oil pan off, what we're going to do is we're going to watch some videos and make sure that we are indeed putting these in right. Again, I'm just very thankful that there's no deep scarring. There's a little bit from maybe when the piston rings were, when I first started the motor, when I got it all put back together, there was a vacuum leak and it was making the motor idle very, very high. I couldn't figure out what it was. It was actually the old intake manifold gasket. Actually, I'm sorry, it was a brand new intake manifold gasket, but it wasn't a metal one. It was, I don't know what it is, paper or something, whatever it was. It came in the kit, the rebuild kit, but for some reason it just didn't work that well. So I think when it was just idling up really high like that and didn't have all the oil pressure up to it, of course, when I build my cars, I make a point to make sure that the oil pressures or the oil pumps are primed. So that way when the motor does start, whether it's an LS 6.0 that we saw, that I talked about in one of my videos I pulled out, there it is right there. We just have to break it down. We think we know what the problem is for it now, or I think we know what the problem is now, but we have to rebuild it. We have to take the crank out, or not the crank out, we have to take the rods and pistons out, But anyway, I try to prime, like that oil pump right there, I try to prime it like they say in the videos. So that way when you start the motor, there's oil up in the heads, you know, immediately there's oil like on the bearings. Of course, when you put your motors together, you use assembly lube, and that's what I do on mine too. But anyway, I'm happy the cylinders are not damaged. We're gonna pull the bottom end apart in a minute, and then we're gonna see what's going on with the rods and bearings. I am probably gonna pull the pistons out and probably just put new rings in it since I have it apart. Because again, we're gonna be drifting this car, and we don't wanna have any problems with it, right? We don't wanna have, you know, up at 6 or 7,000 RPMs, wherever we get tuned at, or whatever it's supposed to be drifting at. We don't want it to be any concerns with the motor. I want to be able to get onto the car, be able to chase my friends in their 240s, you know, with my Skyline, which is going to be so much fun in about a month. We had that big event where I'm hoping it's going to be at least like 3 or 4 240 SXs, and it's going to be me in the Skyline. So I don't want to waste any time getting this motor all back together, because I need to go practice. You know, I've only drifted once, and I need to go practice in this car, and I need to check the, you know, how to do the e-brake and all that stuff. There's parts I need to order still. We might also go ahead and look into these oil squirters too. I know when I saw some other videos when I was rebuilding my motor the first time, these oil squirters right there, and right, I think that's the other one right there. I think they say that yeah, you can see it in there. It's kind of like a little crease around it. Maybe not my camera so much, but I can see it in person. Yeah, you can see it right there where my fingernail's at. I think you have to change those out to smaller ones, so that way it doesn't shoot so much oil up into the top. It keeps a lot of oil down the oil pan. We can also see that we already have our head drain kit right here, but like I said, when I had the head drain, I'm sorry, right there, already installed, but I have it capped off right now because when I had it hooked up with a 10 millimeter line, or 10 AN line, which I think is a 3/8 or whatever size it is, when I hooked it up, I thought it was making it where the heads were putting a lot of pressure, right? Like all the valve train and everything was putting pressure down. It was getting down the crank, and that's what was forcing out the oil pump. I don't know yet. I'm gonna call a couple shops and see if they know, maybe some local shops where I live. But sorry, I keep on wiping down my engine. I'm trying to talk and do so at the same time because I'm really excited. I'm beyond thrilled, guys, that there's no damage to cylinders. I was really concerned. These are forged pistons, forged rods. And I was like, if the block is damaged, that's gonna suck. So I just wanna make sure it was good. I haven't lifted the head yet. As you can tell, there's like oil right here at my feet. I gotta clean up a little bit. So maybe I need to lift the head and see if there's any damage to it. But I'll put the camera down here, bring you guys back in just a second. All right, everyone, here we go back again. We have the oil pan off. You can see the bottom of the motor. We have the motor tilted on its side on the engine stand. We went ahead and looked at first thing we looked at was these bolts right here on the crank cradle to make sure that these did not come loose, and they didn't. All of them were torqued down to spec, so it's awesome. And then the second check I did was to pull piston number 1 out because I wanted to see if there's any damage on the crank here. So thankfully on cylinder number 1, there was no damage to the rod bearings, there was no damage to the crank, so that's also awesome. So I'm still tracking down on why this oil pump is allowing oil to seep through the front seal, and we're gonna be ordering a new seal along with the other parts we're gonna be ordering. The front pickup tube looks like it's still good. It's bolted down with the gasket maker there. And to review the piston, got here in my hand, piston number 1 right here, installed correctly because this notch right here needs to go where the oil squirter is. So if you look how my motor is oriented, there's the rear, there's the front, the top side up here where the oil filter is, that's the intake, and the exhaust side is the one that's on the bottom. We installed it this way so it didn't damage the oil squirter, so that's good on us. And then also right here, this notch, we installed it up. I saw a video last night of a gentleman building his, that's also a drifter, and it looks like that's the way to do it. I still want to confirm that to make sure that it is the way, because I don't know if the notch should be up top or on the bottom. And I can't remember what we did on our LS motors. I think in the LS motors, the notches go towards the camshaft. So the on the combustion side, when the motor goes down, I think the notch side is on the inside, not the outside. But that's just speculation right now. We're gonna do some more research and find out. Another good note is I went and looked at the head last night also that I said. Looked at the head, there was no dings, no like cracks, nothing in there. So it looks like the head's gonna be good. We want to check the valves on that like I mentioned a minute ago. And anyway, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up that this block is gonna be good. That once we get the parts, the injectors, head gasket, etc., we're gonna clean the block up, take the pistons out, make sure the gaps on all the rings are set correctly, the shop did. And then that's also gonna conclude this part 1 of the engine breakdown for the R33 Skyline. You can see that there's the head over there, there's the cams, and again, there's the block, and of course, there's the car. Sorry, the bikes, this garage is a mess. And then there's the car. So everything is out. We're getting ready to get the parts ordered. We got about, like I said, a week and a half to get the parts ordered, get this thing broken down, put back together, get back in the car, test drive the car, and then go drift it and have some fun. So thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Everyone that's tuning in, that's watching the videos. And just thinking once again, you guys have a wonderful night and God bless you all. Talk to you next time.